let's get some greater detail on currency movements and also central banks, with some 4 of them due to hand down policy decisions this week. Pete McGuire joining us from XM. Pete, a very good morning to you. I hope you had a good weekend. So there's quite a bit to consider, as I mentioned, particularly central banks. But the focus, of course, will be the Fed this week, later in the week. Interestingly, of course, from an Australian perspective, that's going to be released on Thursday morning. We're not going to be here. We've got a holiday that day, so we're going to have to wait another 24 hours before we can trade on that news. What are your expectations?
Well, good morning, Andrew. Yes, it will be a good week. And, well, we can still trade currency markets, Andrew, because everyone's open besides us. But on Thursday, 75 basis points, or are they going to knock it up to 100? This is what some analysts are saying. Big percentage of them, about 30%, are saying it's going to be 100 basis points. So we could see some fireworks this week across many of the central banks. And the overall theme is probably King Dollar keeps on moving to the upside, Andrew.
Yep, all right. Well, we're there. We see the Fed funds rate to the chart of its likely course. Are you buying into that as perhaps whether we are going to see a rate cut in 23 after it peaks?
Well, when do we see it peak? That's the decision.
Yep.
Well, that's the issue. And how long does that take to get it under control or rein it in? And everyone's saying it will be sometime in 23, but no one can, we're not there yet. So let's worry about that when we're there, because I think there's a lot of pain between now and then.
Interestingly, also on Friday, Pete, inflation expectations in the States did come off. So is that likely to be an influence at all for the Fed? Because as we were saying, most likely going to have 75 basis points, but a chance they could go 100.
Yeah. Well, very much so. Yeah, better news than expected, Andrew, but we're still going to face the facts that we're, 8% plus. And when you're looking at food and when you're looking at fuel, you add those to it, it's very, very expensive for the consumer if you haven't had a pay rise. We all understand that. So we're working through those moving parts. And I think that this week could be quite dynamic as far as big currency swings. And I think there should be some surprises.
All right, what other central banks are you looking at this week, and maybe some of the key data you're watching?
Well, Bank of England. I'm also looking at the Swiss National Bank and what they do as far as their inflation targets and whether they're ratcheting up rates like they did in June. The Bank of England, I think they'll be off to the races as well. A couple of the other ones, Bank of Canada, they've got a decision next week. And of course, keeping my eyes very much on Bank of Japan. But the overall situation is that I think that volatility story is just been so dynamic over the last couple of weeks that will really come into play in this, certainly over the next quarter, but lead up to October 1.
You speak of the Bank of Japan, of course. Just looking at those movements in the yen, what are you seeing there at the moment?
Well, you're looking at, about 142.70 on the screen at the moment. I think that it'll probably test those, 144s, 145s again. We've been just under 145, and everyone's saying as the line in the sand now 150. So I think that overall momentum, we've had such a big washout over the last 12 months. Have a look at your screen there. I mean, that's just incredible, 35 yen. And if you haven't made a dollar out of that one, Andrew, then I think it's give the game away. Well, it is. I mean, the yen's been so dynamic for all the traders. Mrs. Watanabe and everyone else jumped on it, and it's just been rubbing their hands with glee, shorting the yen.
Overall, Pete, how are you seeing US dollar strength at the moment? And we'll take a look at the Aussie at the same time.
Well, you look at a 109.50, so 109.5 is the US dollar index, Andrew. Well, I think we'll break 110. I thought it may have happened last week. Went very, very close. Aussie's been just, spanked down through, as you said earlier in the introduction. We're through that 67 target now. Kiwi's under 60, and I think that volatility and those big, big moves, 1 cent moves over a day or two, which is just dynamic for any trader. So I think that will add excitement to the market, and it's a good place to play if you've got your hands on the wheel.
Pete, there was some hint perhaps from the Reserve Bank that they, or in particular Philip Lowe, that they may not be as aggressive as perhaps initially thought there. Is that likely to put some pressure on the Aussie, do you feel? I guess, it all will be revealed, of course, at the next meeting.
Well, yes, Andrew, and I think that will probably put further downside pressure. So the Aussie, I wouldn't be surprised for it to take a 66 handle out by the end of the month. I'm just thinking it seems to be downward, the downdraft, and the overall momentum is strong. US dollar, King dollar is, bid up, and the Aussie seems to be, falling commodity prices. Have a look what the price of iron ore is and the overall themes. So yeah, the Aussie seems to be a wonderful market to go short on at the moment. I'm not suggesting that, but you've only got to see what's happened in the charts over the last couple of weeks.
And Pete, of course, globally, energy remains the focus given how that's playing out. What are you seeing with the price of oil at the moment?
Well, you got Brent now sitting at 92, Andrew. It's given up some of that hot steam, and WTI 85.5 bucks a barrel. So it seems we had a big push up over the last week or so, and probably some of that hot air's coming out. I'm conscious as far as the OPEC situation, what's going on with Putin and the Chinese. So yeah, there's a lot of big themes being played out, and you've got different currencies being asked for payment. So yeah, oil at the moment, Andrew, I think will continue to be volatile, and it's great market to trade. But if you're a trader.